as we are not yet enlightened, we think that we are separate individuals having a separate self. All religions, world religions, other than Buddhism, believe that every individual has a separate self and a separate permanent soul. Therefore, the aim of all religions other than Buddhism is to reach an eternal heaven under an eternal Almighty God and live eternally as a separate soul. The Buddhism aims quite the opposite. The final aim of Buddhists is enlightenment, at least to become an arahant. Once one is enlightened, one is no more reborn as a separate self or separate individual. That means the self come to the final end of it at the final passing away. It means the final goal of Buddhism is the ending of the self, the individual self, and the so-called soul in it. However, after enlightenment, though one does not think one as a separate individual or self, the enlightened ones behave in the form of a common self, not an individual self. That is becoming part and parcel of the nature. The entire nature and every item in the nature is controlled by the nature, which is boundless and which is timeless. That means beyond time and space. The individual self is limited by time and space. Though religions other than Buddhism says there is a permanent self within called soul. Soullessness is the basic teaching of the Buddha. Nobody has a permanent soul. Everybody is changing every moment. even though we are not enlightened, we all can see and experience that we have been changing from moment to moment from our very birth, and that changing process is coming to an end at the death. That means the life, the self, the individual is limited by time. And we can occupy only a separate space within the space, separate area. That means we all are limited by time and space. The enlightened ones, although they are selfless, they have lost their belief of the individuality. They all behave naturally, like trees and plants. They too do not have a permanent soul. No plant has a permanent soul, because they are not reborn again and again. But we know, even through experience and through experiments and through reading different experiences of different religious teachers, we are reborn again and again. But the Buddha says, no individual is reborn, but what we call rebirth is not the dead person and nobody else also. Nacha so, nacha anyo. Neither oneself nor another self. That is only a continuity of the flow of energy. The flow of energy like a river that we call a separate individual, a separate self. But in actuality, we all are made by the same nature, same elements of the nature, and we all are controlled by the nature of the nature. Though we think we are individuals separated from the rest of the boundless, timeless nature. It means we are part and parcel of the boundless, timeless nature. Enlightenment means becoming part and parcel of the boundless nature, the timeless nature, but not as separate individuals, but as a part and parcel of the same nature. It means enlightenment is naturalization. We turn to be our real nature, not the nature we have built up separately as individuals. It is the common nature. Therefore, the enlightened ones are called Sangha, literally meaning community, showing their togetherness separate from individuality. Their individuality gets dissolved in that common nature of the nature. Nature is benevolent. Therefore, benevolence is the nature of the nature. Yet, they behave naturally, selflessly, not as individuals, though practically it appears the enlightened ones are separate individuals. In their spirit, they do not think they are separate individuals. The concept of separate individuality gets lost forever at the very first step to enlightenment, called Sotapanna in Pali, translated in English as the beginning, stream beginning stage, the stream flowing to enlightenment. And that flow is not as a separate individual and not acting as separate individuals without the concept of a self. They behave in accordance with the nature, in accordance with the laws of nature, in accordance with the nature of nature. Therefore, enlightenment means the real naturalization of separate individuals, where they are becoming a community with togetherness. In reality, we also can experience that we are not separated from the nature, we are not separated from the rest of the nature that is boundless and timeless, beyond the directions or dimensions of time and space. Practically, though the physical body is a separate entity, living within a separate time, living within a separate space. The body is limited by time and space. So is the mind. So is the thinking. Thinking is a process. Every thought is dying and new thought is to be born. Thoughts are never permanent. They come and go. They come and pass away. And thinking is a process of creating a thought after thought. Enlightenment means the ending of this thinking process. It is the thinking process that leads us to think that we have a separate self and that we are separate individuals, and that is based on the reality of the experiences we have been having. We think, I lived as a baby. I lived as a child. I lived as a boy or a girl. I lived as an adolescent. I lived as a young person. Now I am living as an old individual. That is what I remember. All what I remember that way shows that I have no permanent entity. I have no permanent identity. My identity, both physically and mentally. That means both my physical nature and the mental nature have been changing constantly. There is only a changing processes and no permanent soul. That is what is meant by anattata in the Buddha's teaching. His teaching is based on soullessness, selflessness. It is to that stage of spiritual achievement that all the enlightened ones one day reach, to live naturally as a part and parcel of the nature.